So now time is coming, so I would like to open this webinar. So that I'm sorry, this go to the slideshow. So thank you everyone for your coming. So I will open the webinar on 2020 at 2024 Declaration of Helsinki, taking forward bioethics and human rights, co-organized by the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, International Federation of Associations of Pharmaceutical Physicians and Pharmaceutical Medicine, IFAP, and the Clinical Evaluation and Pharmaceutical Study Group, and supported by the Japan Association for Bioethics. Cooperation by Japanese Association of Pharmaceutical Medicine, JAFMED, that is a Japanese affiliate of IFAP, and the Japanese Institute for Public Engagement, and the Clinical Research Risk Management Study Group. All of the presentations are panelists' personal view, not of affiliations, not explanation from the side of World Medical Association, unless there is a specific references. My name is Chieko Kurihara, one of the organizers, and there is some administrative. So this is today's program. There is a welcome remarks from the representatives organizers. The Professor Businger, current president of the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, will participate the next day, August 26th. And Professor Greco, who is a past president of the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, will make our opening welcome remarks. And Kotone Matsuyama, who is a chair of ethics working group of IFAP, will bring the message from the president of the IFAP. And Chieko Kurihara and myself represent other co-organizers, but there is no remarks from these organizations as they are mainly publication and administrative commitment. And the presentation from Kotone Matsuyama, commitment of the ethics working group of the IFAP. And Takeo Sayo, he is my husband, and myself, both of us will bring some overview of the revision process of the 2024 Declaration of Helsinki. And Kyoko Imamura, who is the president of Japanese Institute for Public Engagement, and she is the past president of IFAP. He will make introduction of the brief introduction of JI4P for the next speaker, Yoshiko Saito. She will make a presentation on patient and public opinions to the revision of the Declaration of Helsinki. And there is 5 to 10 minutes. And the latter half, there is a presentation from Professor Hillman from Brazil, titled In Defense of the Most Vulnerable Research Participant. He is one of the participants, but not a designated lecturer, but he will make a good presentation. And Dr. Boniha, she will talk about the experience of CONEP to facilitate ethical research. CONEP means Brazilian National Commission on Ethics in Research, and then discussion and closing remarks. So thank you very much. This is, I will stop the administrative talk just now and would like to hand the initiative to Professor Greco. He is the past president of Brazilian Society of Bioethics, and he will open the meeting. So thank you very much. So please, Professor Greco.
It's a joke he wants you to let. He has good delivery. He's got good timing.
So, but please unmute.
The other night at the
Professor Greco, unmute.
As I know, I was trying to find the button. Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. Thank you, Chieko, for sharing this podium with me. My name is Dirceu Greco. I'm a professor emeritus at the Federal University of Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, Brazil. My main points of work is infectious disease and bioethics, and I'm very honored to share this coordination with my very good friends, my two good friends, Chieko, and of course with Takeo. And I have to especially thank the two of them for the amazing work in preparing and putting together this webinar. In this webinar, I'm representing today the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, since our president, Elda Bossinger, will not be able to join us today, but she will be with us, as Chico has mentioned, in the 26th of August seminar. I have no conflicts of interest to declare, and it's important to stress again, Chico, that this seminar is co-organized by many important entities, not only by the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, but also by the International Federation of Associations of Pharmaceutical Physicians and Pharmaceutical Medicine, the clinical evaluation, the 129 Pharmaceutical Study Group, and of course, very important, supported by the Japan Association for Bioethics, and with the cooperation of the Japanese Association of Pharmaceutical Medicine. And also the Japanese Institute for Public Engagement, the Clinical Research Risk Management Group, and of course, it's important to stress that we are convening in a very special situation. We're going to discuss many opinions, many experience related to the Declaration of Helsinki. It's important to remember that the Declaration of Helsinki belongs to the World Medical Association. It's going to be 60-year anniversary now. I think it's in June, but it's going to be commemorated in October in Helsinki, when the new declaration is going to be approved. So we all know and the role that the Declaration of Helsinki has in many countries, even being a declaration prepared by and directed to medical doctors. It has opened up for many countries to use it as an example many times not really quite agreeing with what is there, but really it's important. And then, Chieko and my friends that are on the audience, that's our role now, to try to discuss and see what we think could be made better in the new version. If you see the title of this webinar, it is very clear: taking forward bioethics and human rights, especially with the focus on the Declaration of Helsinki. Without anything else to do and to start really our seminar, I hand back to Chieko. So just one more thing that I forget. The Brazilian Society of Bioethics is here, represented also by two other members of the board, Fernando Helman, who is going to present, and Diego Zanetta, who is going to present in the next 26th of August. And of course, we have many members participating as participants. So now I hand over back to Chieko so she can open up for the presentation. I thank you again for inviting me, for being together, and I hope it's going to be a very successful webinar. And as Chieko mentioned, is being recorded, and we hope that we can use that for our discussions related to the coming new version of the Declaration of Helsinki 2024. Thank you. Have all a very nice and open and participative seminar. Thank you, Chieko. Back to you.
Thank you, Professor Greco, for a very important talk. As everyone or someone of you know very well, that Professor Greco is a very prominent, excellent stakeholder in the process of the past revision and, of course, current revision process of the Declaration of Helsinki. So just like he says that this is not the webinar provided from the WMA. And there are several number of regional meetings from organized by the WMA, and we will make a video recording of this webinar, and it will be shared among the WMA. This is my intention. So if someone of you wish to bring your opinion to the WMA, please speak out. So the first speaker is Professor Kotone Matsuyama, Koto, you already okay? Okay. So
Yes.
she is a chair of ethics working group and bring the message from the president of the IFAP, and then she will start her presentation. So please, Koto, please.
Thank you. So it's okay? Yeah. So thank you for the inviting me to hear a very important seminar. And I am Kotone Matsuyama, and I am the current chair of the ethics working group of the IFAP. So first of all, I'd like to introduce about the message from my IFAP president, Dr. Barbara, and then I will start my presentation. The presentation title is Commitment of the Ethics Working Group of the IFAP. So this is the greeting from the IFAP president, Dr. Barbara, and I can, and I will read. I sincerely apologize that circumstances have prevented me from being here today to extend a warm personal welcome. However, I extend my warmest greetings and my deepest gratitude for your presence, which will enrich our perspective and discourse. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizing committee and especially to my colleagues in the IFAP Ethics Working Group, Professor Chieko Kurihara and Professor Kotone Matsuyama, our distinct speakers, and each and every participant. This webinar is not just an academic or theoretical exercise. It is a call to action. As we delve into these issues of the ongoing revisions of the Declaration of Helsinki, your views and questions may have transformative potential for human life and bioethics. Your input and our discussions can influence actionable change in medical research for the benefit of research participants. Without further ado, I wish you a stimulating dialogue and mutual inspirations, as this is a message from Barbara. So now I will start my presentation. So IFAP is a primary objective to bring together physicians and scientists from the pharmaceutical industry and contract research organizations, and also working with an academia and medicinal regulatory agencies and the patient organizations in order to stimulate the advancement of knowledge in pharmaceutical medical globally. Currently, 25 national member associations represent the interest in the goals of the several thousand professionals active in pharmaceutical medicine. So this is our homepage. And now I'd like to introduce about the ethics working group. And the aim of this ethics working group is to share and deepen the understanding of the wide range of the ethical issues in pharmaceutical medicine to share current topics and their potential solutions. As currently, this working group is working on the following topics on the ongoing basis. So one of our big challenge and to collaborate with the WMA and make recommendations for the revisions of the Declaration of Helsinki. And we also take the ethical issues in the clinical trials, especially in the disaster settings, and also ensuring access to the new investigational drugs and vaccines and the benefit sharing, and also ethics principle and framework in the pharmaceutical medicines. And we have then joint activities with not only for the WMA but also with science. And now we have then a memorandum of understanding between IFAP and the WMA signed in 2017. So since then, we agreed to cooperate with each other with mutual collaboration work with WMA. So this is the WMA regional meetings on the amendment of this Declaration of Helsinki, and in the last year, the September meeting in Denmark, the new clinical trial design, Barbara invited as an IFAP delegate president. And also, maybe in this month in Washington, D.C., the team with an advocacy and in communication, and Chieko invited the IFAC ethics working group. And for the WMA General Assembly, Barbara and Chieko and I will join to the WMA meeting. So this is the first publication to the amendment of the Declaration of Helsinki. And this is the linking the Declaration of Helsinki and the Declaration of Taipei, and titled, and this also from the frontiers and pharmacology. And this is the main essential requirement of the Declaration of Taipei. So as you know, items for the information of the obtaining the valid consent when data and materials are collected in health databases or by a bank are defined, including with a valid consent. And robust governance, the governance process of the HDV and also the MBB are defined to including the documentation, traceability, and arrangement of the ownership change or closure of the, and also the privacy protection and discrimination prevention and material transfer agreement, all of which should be informed to the candidate donor of the data or material. And this is the infographic with data-driven research. So we have then the connection between the Declaration of Helsinki and Taipei, and two within the general principle to mutual provided to the data and the materials to research according to the DNT. And so this will be the future possibility of the secondary use. And this is not including, this is independent nowadays, but our proposal is to combine with an Declaration of Helsinki and Taipei to using the data and materials and within a future possibility to the secondary use. And secondary, the ethical approval and consent for the secondary use. And this should be clarified within the revisions of this Declaration of Helsinki paragraph in 22 and 26. So, and the next, and the proposal for the 8-tier construction of DOH, there are ethics in the data-driven research, and also then the placebo and post-trial access. And next focus will be the future-oriented framework of the research ethics. That is our proposal in that end. And then, so we have the also the mutual event for the inviting the WMA member at the IFAP meeting. So this is the ICPM meeting. Is an international conference on pharmaceutical medicines, the 2022 that placed in the Athens, Greek. And we have the Dr. Reznik and Dr. Kloiber as presenters with the team with Declaration of Helsinki. And we have the now, according to the activities, and we had the DOH public comment participation in the first wave and the second wave. And then we just published the policy brief article with the Declaration of Helsinki and ethical norm and pursuit of common global goals, which made by the mainly and the ethics working group members. So maybe we should work with the new emerging technology and such kind of the data privacy laws and the genomic LCs and classification of the choices, paternalism, or the patient public involvement and use of the genetic analysis tools. So we are now ongoing with this very important activity via IFAP ethics working group. So thank you for listening, and so thank you to this amazing seminar opportunity. So thank you, Chieko.
So thank you very much. So if there is just a small question specific to Koto's presentation, we can accept. Is there anyone? I found one question from the audience that whether there is some planned revision of the Declaration of Taipei. So I cannot say that there is no information from the WMA. I can say just there is a 10-year rule in WMA that to think about the possibility of make a revision, to go enter into the revision process. But I have no information about the Declaration of Taipei. But however, if there are some push from the people in the research community, the WMA will consider it. So if you regard it is necessary to make a revision to the Declaration of Taipei, please write a paper, express your voices. So is there any question? No? So, okay, thank you very much, Koto. So we will have some discussion time later half. So if there is anything, please speak again. So thank you very much. So next speaker is Takeo Sayo. So Takeo, do you say something before starting the video recording? Because he is not so good at speaking in this kind of webinar. So he prepared the recording, video recording. Takeo.
Yeah, no, not so. I have nothing to
Nothing
particular.
to. So he's here. He's very strong effort for organizing this meeting, but he's not so good at speaking. So I prepared the video recording. So I will share it. Sorry, wait a bit. I'm not so good at managing this kind of technical issue. Sorry. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, I will start.
Thank you for your kind introduction. I am Takeo Sayo, Japanese physician practicing internal medicine, psychiatry, and occupational health. I am one of the early advocates of evidence-based medicine in Japan. I have no conflict of interest on this presentation. I present you my opinion from the standpoint of a clinician who has some knowledge on bioethics as a whole. There have been 7 WMA's regional meetings until now. The main themes of each meeting are shown on this slide. The WMA put public consultations 2 times. Kindly, some of the regional meetings accepted online observation by the public, but the numbers of online participants were strictly limited because the opening announcements are always just a few days before the event, which made a sort of barrier for physicians, patients, and the general public to view the meetings. However, generous enough, the video recordings of some of them are available from these websites. As of the public consultations, in the phase 1 public consultation, I submitted a comment co-authoring with Professor Greco, and for phase 2 co-authoring with Professor Greco and Professor Busingler, the past and the current presidents of the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, representing the society. This is a great honor of me. Most important topic I wish to focus is the condition of placebo control study when there is a proven intervention. The 2000 version of the DOH permits placebo study only when there is no proven intervention. However, in 2002, a small working group changed this condition to current idea. No additional risk of serious or irreversible harm according to ICH GCPE 10 guidelines. It was discussed by small group to reverse the 2000 General Assembly decision. We argued during this time that this process is unfair. Then current proposed revision keeps this condition that placebo study when there is a proven intervention is permitted if there is no additional risk of serious or irreversible harm. However, this condition is inconsistent with SHIOM's 2016 guidelines that states that placebo study, when there is a proven intervention can be permitted, when there is only minor increase above minimal risk. Our opinion is that the DOS should follow the SHIOM's. What I would like to point out now is that the WMA's explanation in public consultation document about the paragraph 33 seems to be deceptive or unfair for me. They omitted in the revision draft on the most important debates. One is the standard of care, which means local standards or global standard. And another is the risk threshold, with the risk thresholds, it is obvious that the DOH's high risk standard is inconsistent with the CIOM's standard, which allows only minor increase above minimal risk. However, the WMA's expression in the draft is confusable, treating Latin American countries and CONFIMER agree with proposed revision to keep 2013 version at the regional meeting in Sao Paulo. The draft only changed probe intervention to an intervention proven to be safe and effective, and there is some minor change. Adding safe is important, but not the focus of international debate. So I would like to ask Latin American colleagues whether Declaration of Cordoba, Buenos Aires, and Pachuca are still now effective or not. I learned that Latin American organization rejected the DOH because of weakened protection in placebo and access paragraph. I would like to introduce what Dr. Eitaka Tsuboi stated when he was president of the Japanese Medical Association and also the president of the WMA at the time of 2000 revision. He stated that the JMA did not accept the 2002 note of classification to permit placebo study when there is a proven intervention if there is no additional risk of serious or irreversible harm. For this reason, JMA did not publish a Japanese translation of this note on the JMA website. Dr. Tsuboi explained that Japan expressed objection to proposal from American Medical Association because developing countries were not in a position to express objection because they benefit from the US. For this reason, we expressed non-Western spirit that ethical reason takes precedence over scientific needs and paradigm. Tsuboi stated that the placebo clause in the 2000 revision is a perfect prima facie norm. More in-depth analysis on placebo study was discussed in our paper and will be discussed by the other speakers today. Thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you very much, Takeo, for your presentation by video recording. So if there is any question or opinion, please raise your hand. And there is a question to the Latin American colleagues, and it will be responded in the latter half of this webinar. So if there is no specific question or opinions, I would like to continue to the next presentation from myself. Professor Greco, please.
Yeah, just responding to the provocation that very nicely Takeo said about the trade declaration in Latin America. I agree with you. It's a very strong stance, and it's very nice to hear that in Japan, at the same time that Brazil took the same decision, we are against the changes. But I agree with you. We should keep it for the discussion time. I think it's a very important issue that we should all together, even if it's not only here, but as you said, people can write to us. Thank you. Back to you.
Well, thank you very much. And the placebo and the post-trial access will be the most prominent controversial topics. So there is enough discussion time and latter half. So I would like to make my presentation to following Takeo, brief overview of that Declaration of Helsinki, the current revision. Sorry, this is. So it's okay. So thank you everyone for participation. My name is Chieko Kurihara, Kanagawa Dental University, one of the organizers, and will present overview of the revision process of the 2024 Declaration of Helsinki, a general description and some highlights. All the content is my personal view, not from WMA side, not representing any organizations. I'm working at the National Research Institute as Vice Chair of Research Review Board. I am engaged in ethics working group of the IFAP, also engaged in ICRP's activity to developing international ethics documents. So first, just a bit about background. I have been engaged in the discussions of the DOH since 2000 revision from external position from the WMA, and most recently published this book as a leading editor collaborating with co-editors Professor Greco and Professor Ames Dye. Ames Dye will attend the second day of this webinar, August 2026. The book title is Ethical Innovation for Global Health, Pandemic, Democracy, and Ethics in Research, published from Springer last November. This book acquired 2,700 downloads in 109 countries worldwide during 8 months from publication. Then we planned next publication within next year to discuss about the new version of the Declaration of Helsinki. So DOH new version will be adopted in October. There are 2 times of public consultations. I led 2 times of comment submissions from IFAP Ethics Working Group members, which is not officially representing IFAP. And today's presentation is my personal view, not representing IFAP. So this is the same size as Koto and Takeo showed, and a little bit different. There are WMA's regional meetings discussing several topics. IFAP President Barbara Barroso was invited to discuss new clinical trial design. She will attend the next day of this webinar, and I was invited to coming Washington, D.C. meeting held on August 15 and 16th, focusing on advocacy and communications. This is representing IFAP Ethics Working Group. So next about some key changes of the revision and my personal opinions. Through the document, the word human subject is changed to human participant. Because this is the same as ICH GCP renovation, the impact of the DOH is not so much. Another point is that recommendation to non-physician researchers became strengthened. This is in line with the IFAP's position. One of the highlights is a new paragraph on community engagement. Previously, WMA's people said that it is not, community engagement is not the business of WMA. It's not a business of physician. So it is important to stress that research takes place in the context of various structural inequities. This is very important. And meaningful community engagement is recommended to avoid inequities in the conduct and the result implementation of the research. So my opinion, this result implementation is most important. That is related to the post-trial access issue. So next, about the purpose of research that can never take precedence over the right and the interest of individual research participants. This core principle of the DOH is not changed. A new paragraph states even in the public health emergency, the principles in the DOH does not change. And the word social value was added in the first draft as the ultimate goal of research, but it was deleted in the second draft. It is disappointing because social value is established concept in the CIOM's 2016 guidelines for health research. There is also extensive discussions in the regional meetings on the vulnerability. The world trend is changing from stereotypical categorization of vulnerable groups, such as children, pregnant women, to context-based vulnerability, which means vulnerability is changing up to the situations. Another point is to promote inclusion of vulnerable people in research rather than protection by means of excluding them. This is because better health of vulnerable people needs more inclusion in research with strengthened protection. This is already clearly discussed in CIOMS, but the text in DOH is still now not so clear. So another interesting point to include new word, research waste. This is because during the COVID-19 pandemic, many meaningless research results were published. Something missing is that there is no mention of prevention of scientific misconduct. So Research Ethics Committee's function is strengthened. Most importantly, in case of international research, both in sponsoring and host community reviews are required. In terms of informed consent, electronic documentation comes to be mentioned. So this is the most important highlight of this revision. Koto discussed introduced that the IFAP's paper. During the process, you obtain informed consent of research participants. If there is a possibility of future secondary use of the data or materials from the research, you have to adhere to the Declaration of Taipei. The content of the Declaration of Taipei is not easy, not limited to privacy protection or security. You have to consider handling of incidental findings, intellectual property rights, and material transfer agreement. And there are some other requirements in the TOT. We have to learn more about the Declaration of Taipei. So condition of placebo study when there is a proven intervention is the most controversial point of debates. Unfortunately, there seems to be no change at this moment. Since 1975 to 2000, the DOH describes physicians' duty to provide best proven intervention, even in comparative study. However, according to the ICH E10 guidelines in 2000, the DOH changed its position to utilitarian pragmatism. Excuse me, please mute. Okay. So, however, according to the ICH E10 guidelines in 2000, the DOH changed its position to utilitarian pragmatism to allow placebo study when there is a proven intervention if there is no increase of risk of serious or irreversible harm. On the other hand, CIOM's guideline 2016 takes a different risk threshold, minor increase above minimum risk. IFAP members' paper, for which I am reading author, supported this CIOM's position of risk minimization. So, post-trial access, the ethical standard. This is first included in the 2000 version of the Declaration of Helsinki, of ensuring that participants in the trial are provided with an intervention proven to be effective in that trial as a completion. In the case of a placebo trial, the intervention shown to be effective would be made available to participants in the placebo arm. In any study design, a participant who still needs the study intervention at the end of the study should be provided with this intervention after the end of the study. Without post-trial access, the trial participants are being exploited. However, sometimes it is difficult for the sponsor to provide access because of the time gap before regulatory approval. So because of these difficulties, since 2004, post-trial access has become an item to be described in the protocol and informed consent, whether or not there is post-trial access. In the 2024 revision, the requirements for post-trial access are strengthened. However, there is an excuse. Exceptions to these provisions must be approved by a research ethics committee. So argument of IFAP members, this is not official statement of IFAP. Post-trial access should be available to participants who still need the trial intervention and people in the trial host community and those who most in need worldwide. So thank you for your attention, and I hope that you visit these websites to upload continuous discussions, including the video recording of this webinar. So thank you very much. So if there is any question or opinion specific to my presentation, please raise your hand. So please, Professor Greco.
No, I just want to congratulate you for so clear and specific points in that we need to discuss very thoroughly, not only today, not only in August 26, but in our groups of discussion on what is really needed for a well-prepared and not exploitive research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your additional comment. So David, you're raising a hand. Please have your comment.
Yes, thank you, Chico, for a very clear presentation. I compliment Dr. Greco's comment. The very last bullet on your last slide, the notion of post-trial access for patients in need, yes, that last bullet, those most in need worldwide, suggests a crossover or an intersection between another program phenomenon, sometimes called compassionate use or expanded access or managed access, which at the decision of the developer, when sufficient efficacy and safety is established, can make medicines, therapies, et cetera, available under various programmatic constraints. Your bullet seems to suggest that such access should be made as a part of any trial, which would take away the current threshold, which is the decision of the manufacturer. I'm just wondering if your thinking has considered the current range of compassionate use and expanded access programs and where these two areas meet in your thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very important perspective, and I provided many times discussion meetings. Every participant say about this issue. So post-trial access would be provided in some kind of regulatory, following some kind of regulatory tracks. There would be expanded access. There would be an extension study, and there would be the safety study. It's up to the regulatory jurisdictions. And Declaration of Helsinki is not the guidance for industry. I once wrote some BMJ blog that the DOH is not the guidance for industry. So every regulatory body or every pharmaceutical companies should have such kind of policy in their own strategy, which kind of regulatory track is fit to the each study, each intervention. The DOH is an ethical principle. DOH says you should follow some ways to, you should take some options to realize post-trial access for the patients who needs. And point 3, provide those most in need in worldwide. This is very much challenging. There's no such kind of idea in the DOH, but some scholars argue these things. So there is one paper written by leading author Koto that is about benefit sharing. And also we wrote in the Springer book about the analysis of the post-trial access. And not only regulatory track, but also some kind of technology transfer or manufacturing capacity development in the resource poor countries. So making use of this kind of strategies, only making use of this kind of strategies, this third point would become possible. This is a challenge for the global community. So we should take into consideration that the DOH is not a regulatory guidance, but it's an ethical principle we have to seek for. Thank you very much. So is there any...
May I respond briefly?
Yeah.
Thank you, Cheko. Thank you, Cheko, for that useful distinction. We do know and recognize that Helsinki is not a regulatory document, it's an ethics document. However, we also know that many pharmaceutical organizations, commercial organizations, reference Helsinki very appropriately in public positions and in policies and in internal operations, so that if Helsinki were to take such a step, it would not have regulatory authority, obviously, but it would have significant or could have significant impact on how commercial development organizations think about their responsibilities. And in that sense would be a very powerful step forward. So I do recognize that I take it this is your position, but I'm just recognizing and complimenting you because while complex, it would be an extremely important step forward in terms of equity, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. There is some kind of revision in the Declaration of Helsinki that some kind of stakeholders, that it's pharmaceutical companies and regulatory bodies, some kind of collaboration is needed. So there is a bit change in the Declaration of Helsinki. So please see the public consultation document again. So thank you very much. So the time is so tight, so I would like to go to the next presentation. I'm sorry, I will stop sharing. So Kyoko, do you have a slide presentation?
No slides, just briefly trying to introduce Yoshiko. Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Kyoko Imamura. Currently, I am the president of Japanese Institute for Public Engagement, JIFOPE in short. I established this organization when I was serving as a president of IFAP in the year 2020. And in our organization, we are providing education and training to patients and the public, as well as the pharma industries and the academic institution professionals. And the next presenter, Ms. Yoshiko Saito. Yes, she has been the active member of our organization, and she is currently leading the bioethics working group, together with many colleagues who have participated in the publication of Springer book, which is presented by Chieko just a minute ago. So I expect that Yoshiko can make a beautiful presentation today in the challenging your ethical interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyoko, for your introduction of JIP4PE. That is an excellent organization to provide systematic education, both for experts and patient and the public together. This is surprising. So, okay, please, Yoshiko, could you prepare your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it okay to?
So it's not a slideshow. Okay, it's okay.
Okay.
Please start.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Now it is nighttime in Japan. So thank you very much for the introduction, Imamura Sensei. My name is Yoshiko Saito. I am a breast cancer survivor. I am very grateful for the opportunity to speak today. I will cover the opinions of patient and public on the revision of the Declaration of Helsinki. I will prepare this presentation with Professor Chieko Kurihara based on discussion in the Patient and Public Working Group of Japanese Institution for Patient Engagement, JI4PE. Now, let's move on to the main topic. I'd like to speak about 3 points today. Let's start with the background of our group. Declaration, The Declaration of Helsinki is a set of ethical principles of medical research involving humans that directed by physicians. It was developed by the World Medical Association, WMA. It is assumed that research participants often first see its title in an informed consent document when asked to participate in medical research. But it is not widely known in society. This is why our working group has been holding monthly online meetings since November 2020 to discuss the content. During the process, some members initiated to rewrite and explain the Declaration of Helsinki in our own words, using plain language addressed to patient and public. This process led to the project to develop a 3-part document of title, Our WMA Declaration of Helsinki. First part of each paragraph is a reproduction of the Declaration of Helsinki under the permission of WMA and Japanese Medical Association, JMA. Second part is rewritten and explained in our plain language. And third part is about our opinion on the Declaration of Helsinki from our perspectives. Because the Declaration of Helsinki is a set of basic principles that are internationally recognized, we thought the issues and proposals that we had noticed would be worth sharing internationally, and we were given the opportunity to have them published as a part of a book. Its title is Ethical Innovations of Global Health, and it was published by Springer in November 2023. In addition, our WMA Declaration of Helsinki was published in entirety in the July 2024 issue of the Japanese journal Clinical Evaluation. Responding to the WMA public consultation, we submitted opinions based on our past discussion and publication in February and June this year. In order to understand the Declaration of Helsinki, it is necessary to have a common understanding of various international treaties, domestic norms, and various WMA declarations. Furthermore, from the South African constitutions, we learned the Japanese Clinical Research Act does not establish fair protection for research participants. In addition, we strongly believe research ethics principles must ensure the protection of privacy rights. We also learned that WMA has issued many declarations and statements, not only on research ethics, but also on medical practice and patient care. Recently, large amount of patient data have been used to develop various medicines, including artificial intelligence. Therefore, the Taipei Declaration on Health Databases biobanks is particularly important. In the second part, I present our opinions on the WMS draft document for revising the Declaration of Helsinki. We have 3 key points. First, simplify the language. The Declaration of Helsinki is written in very difficult language and hard to understand for patients. Patients also encounter it in informed consent documents when they are asked to participate in clinical research. Secondly, we support the change from subject to participant, as the word participant accurately describes a person who voluntarily takes part in research. However, the Declaration of Helsinki as a whole is paternalistic, and there is no indication in the proposed revision. We are concerned people in weaker and more vulnerable positions will be left without a sense of participation, despite being described as participants. We believe the term participant will only have true meaning when the importance of advocate is also emphasized. Next, I'd like to talk about the 2 public consultations in detail. All 9 members of the working group prepared the public consultation comments last February and June. Professor Chieko Kurihara supported us, but she read another group's comment, so we have included her in the acknowledgement. Now I will show you our comment. Number 1. The term social value was once added in the first draft, but it was omitted in the second draft. Omitting some social value might cause us to lose sight of the trajectory toward achieving the SDGs. Number 2, for research participants who cannot consent themselves, we must find advocates who best protect their rights and interests. Number 3, we propose the concept of shared decision-making based on informed consent. Number 4, we hope the fairness of research ethics committees and the participation of general committee members will be clearly stated in the Declaration of Helsinki. Number 5, it is nearly impossible for patients to understand the conditions for using a placebo when an intervention has been already proven. Number 6, we believe post-trial access should be guaranteed, but also it should be included in the informed consent document. Without documentation at the time of participation in a clinical research, the patient cannot request the continuation of the study drug, even though it is necessary at the time of completion. The number 7, the proposed Declaration of Helsinki division lacks provision for accumulating data and monitoring safety and effectiveness regarding the use of unproven clinical interventions. However, they are already included in the WHO document. I have additional comments, but due to limited time, I will only show the keywords about on the right side of this slide. Finally, we look towards the future. As we continue to learn, we have restarted a bioethics group made up of patients and public as one of GI4PE's working group last month. I took over the leadership role from a previous leader, Ms. Keiko Inoue. Our group came up with 3 goals. We plan to develop a patient and public research ethics statement. This comes from Professor Ames Dye's advice in a webinar last December at the time of Springer book publication. And with permission from the WMA and JMA, we will publish the second edition of our WMA Declaration of Helsinki after the 2024 version of the Declaration of Helsinki is released. We hope it will be guided from the perspective of patient and public. Third goal is to conduct a survey on patient and public participation in medical care based on the report from SIOMS. By the way, our presentation slide, video recording of webinars, and open access papers are available on the website in both Japanese and English. You can also see the graphic recordings by Ms. Kana Yoshikawa. She joined our several discussions and provided these illustrations to describe our questions and opinions. Well, this brings me to the end of my presentation. Lastly, let me introduce the members of the bioethics working group. I have posted pictures of everyone on the site. Also, I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the president of
Develop this again.
Dr. Kyoko Imamura. And I would like to thank our mentor, Professor Chieko Kurihara, for her guidance and support. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoshiko, for your fantastic presentation. I always say to them that I am not a mentor, we are collaborator. I always learn from this group, patient of the public group. They expressed opinions that I have not been able to have as a research ethics expert. I learned so much from these patient public group. I just interpreted their words into the research ethics terminologies. However, the opinions expressed from them is extremely variable. Thank you very much for your great presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So is there any comment or question? So Professor Greco, please.
Sorry to interrupt again, but I want just to extremely share my congratulations to Yoshiko and her group. I said the same when she published in our book. I said that they have exactly what Paulo Freire mentions all the time. That's emancipation. That's the focus of everything that we do is the participant, is the patient. So keep the good work. And I hope that we can work together in Brazil too, because we need it here. I think your experience should be shared. And if you allow me, I'm going to get in contact with you afterwards. Congratulations to you, to your group. And of course, to Chieko being part of that. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Greco. So I'd like to say one thing to Professor Greco, that is at the time of the starting of the development of the HIV/AIDS vaccine or drug, that was in 1980s, 1990. So Professor Greco, the interview I found that the communication with the community people is very important, and they improved the research protocol. That is an interview article of Professor Greco. And another one thing is that when we invited you to Japan, that was 2019, we had a discussion meeting with Dr. Ottomar Kroiber, who is a Secretary General of the WMA, and Kyoko and Koto also joined, and we had a discussion, and you said that we have a discussion on the research ethics, but there is no patient here. You said it. So that is my trigger of the involvement with this excellent group that receives the education from the Kyoko's organization. So this is a very important time of my experience. So thank you very much. So now the next session is going to start. So Fernando, could you prepare your slide?
Yes.
So, okay, we will start the next session. The first speaker is Professor Fernando Hellman. He is one of the participants, but we invited him as a speaker because he is very much specialized in the issue of the Declaration of Helsinki. So the latter half is a presentation from the Brazilian panelists, and we will learn from their situation.
So I will talk, my presentation is in defense of the most vulnerable research participant, sick patients, and the need for additional principle for therapeutic research in the Declaration of Helsinki. I'm from Federal University of Santa Catarina in Brazil. And first, I would like to thank you, Professor Chieko Kuhihara, for the invitation to share some ideas in this important seminar. I would like to clarify that I have no conflict of interest related to this presentation. In my view, and my insights are based solely on my professional experience in research. I'm also grateful for the World Medical Association transparency. I have had access to their archives and participate in regular meetings and have responded to the open consultation. I wish offer a succinct reflection on the history of Declaration of Helsinki to understand its present and that anticipate its future. I will address two primary themes. First, the history of the process of its revisions and its consequences, And second, the need for including additional principles for therapeutic research, where the research participant is the patient, the sick person, which must be differentiated from the non-therapeutic research. So, the genesis of Declaration of Helsinki. In 1953, was present a document, Experiment on a Human Being, which served as a draft for the resolution on human experimentation and the principle for those in research experimentation adopted by the World Medical Association 1 year later in Rome in 1954. The principle of this official WNA resolution were less protective of research participants than those of the Nuremberg Code. In the 50s, there was a surge in double-blind randomized controlled trials. And to comply with the Nuremberg Code, researchers had to obtain the informed consent from the participants. The use of placebo in the control group was the first major controversy among members from the World Medical Association. In 1959, H. Clegg from the United Kingdom, the president of the World Medical Association Medical Ethics Committee, led a review of the Rome resolution and proposed a new research ethics code. The first draft of what would become the Declaration of Helsinki was presented in Rio in 1951 and was published in British Medical Journal, where Clegg was editor-in-chief. Years of new drafts and news controversy followed. Finally, at the General Assembly in Finland in 1964, the Declaration of Helsinki was adopted and published. Eventually, the document thought to be a code of ethics on human experimentation was adopted as recommendation to guide research with human beings. Simply put, it went for a strict code of ethics to a more relaxed recommendation. The 1964 Declaration of Helsinki, the first one, was divided into 3 parts. First, basic principle. Second, clinical research combined with professional care. And third, non-therapeutic clinical research. Unlike the Nuremberg Code, which considered the consent to be absolutely essential, Declaration allowed for consent whenever is possible. Controversial topics were evident from what was omitted. References using captive groups such as prisoners, orphans, institutionalized mental patients, and students, and control trials were excluded from the final version of this first adopted declaration in Helsinki, Finland. The British criticized the American influence on the declaration, noting that the American Medical Association members on the World Medical Association Ethics Committee managed to align the final version with the American research needs and legislation. From the start, the United States perspective on research ethics prevailed, generally weakening the principle protecting medical research participants. So we have a new one, the Scandinavian Declaration. For 11 years, from the first until 1975, the Declaration of Helsinki remained unchanged. In September of 1974, for the insistence of Scandinavian Medical Association, the inaugural review of the Declaration of Helsinki began. The Scandinavian draft was discussed with the National Association, with the World Health Organization, and Ciba Geigy, now Novartis, and it was finalized in 1975 and adopted in the General Assembly in Tokyo. This review process was both the quickest and the most expensive and progressive in the history of the declaration. It was significantly increased the length without removing any original content. It introduced the requirement for medical research protocols to be reviewed by independent multidisciplinary ethics committee, even though some members of the World Medical Association were hesitant to address central and organization question at the time. The process of obtaining informed consent was made more rigorous. Ethical guidelines were established for publication of results, stipulating that studying not adhering to the declaration's principle should not be published. The term best current was introduced as the standard for diagnosis and treatment in clinical trials. Criticism of the Scandinavian Declaration was followed in its adoption, with the strongest coming from the European Medical Research Council and, of course, the Judicial Council of the American Medical Association. The latter criticized the overemphasis of individual interest, the impractical restriction of scientific journal, and argue that the singular term best proven would hinder comparative studies. The Scandinavian version of the Declaration of Helsinki significantly influenced research ethics involving human from 1975 to 2000, with only 3 minor small changes made during this period. However, the rise of ethical standards led to a decline in its adoption by the National Medical Association. By 1979, only 24 international medical associations had adopted the new version, compared of 33 from the first approved in 1964 version. The American Medical Association also disagreed with the 1975 Scandinavian Declaration of Helsinki. After that, the review of the center. In 1996, during the AIDS epidemic, amidst controversy of the use of placebo in clinical trial, the Declaration of Helsinki clarified its sentence on placebo-controlled studies. This proposal allowed placebo use in trial lacking proved diagnostic and therapeutic methods. It was approved in the General Assembly in South Africa. At the same time, in 1996, the World Medical Association's Ethics Committee received a proposal from the American Medical Association for a comprehensive Declaration of Helsinki review. 1 year later, the American Medical Association's draft was sent to National Medical Association for feedback. Among other changes, the draft proposed for American Medical Association abolished the distinction between therapeutic and non-therapeutic research, facilitating placebo-controlled trial studies. Debates on ethical double standard emerged, particularly concerning placebo-controlled studies in individuals dying for HIV in low-income African countries, funded by the French and also the US government organization. 1 year after, in 1998, Bob Levine from Yale University led a UNAIDS working group for develop an international guideline for HIV clinical research. At the UNAIDS meeting attended by the World Medical Association president, Levine questioned the validity of the Declaration of Helsinki regarding placebo use, and also the distinction between therapeutic and non-therapeutic research. Subsequently, the World Medical Association president invited Levine to participate in the Declaration of Helsinki revision. In March of 1999, Levine's draft of the declaration was similar to proposal from the American Medical Association, eliminated the distinction between therapeutic and non-therapeutic research. It aligned the control arm to medication with local availability, which could mean nothing comparing to a new drug in poor countries, and accepted placebos if scientifically justified and if they did not result in the participant's disability or death. This draft generated considerable media scrutiny and disapproval for its double and flexible research ethics standards. Notable criticism came from the American group Public Citizen. In 1999, the World Medical Association established a new committee with the mandate to complete the review process in 1 year. The newly formed committee was referred as the Three Wise Women, with members from the US, Canada, and Finland. These three wise women completed the revision in 1 year, and the 2000 version of the Declaration of Helsinki was adopted in Edinburgh, Scotland. This version maintained the distinction between therapeutic and non-therapeutic research. The use of placebo in control arm was deemed ethical only when no proven intervention exists. If for the first time, the guarantee of access to the best intervention for all patients at the end of the study was included. This new principle of post-trial access became a new controversial issue. As the history shows, the increase of ethical requirement was accompanied by a decrease in adherence. And now we start the battle of Helsinki. Its implementation in 2000 version of Declaration of Helsinki sparked debates regarding the use of placebo, known as a standard of care debate, and also post-trial access. The FDA, American FDA, chose not to abide by the 2000 declaration. New guidelines were published, such as from the US, United States Nation Bioethics Advisory Commission Guidelines for Medical Research in 2001, and the UK's Nuffit Council Bioethics Guidelines, both supporting comparison in control arm based on the host community conditions. Additionally, the SIOM's guidelines were revised in 2002 with points diverging from the 2000 Declaration of Helsinki. It is at this time, Bob Levine was also the chief of this revision. Because of the pressure from these rich and powerful countries, the World Medical Association recognized the need for clarification on 2 paragraphs. The first note of clarification, adopted in 2002, introduced more flexible provision for use placebos to better conform to these stated guidelines. In the second note, from 2004, emphasized the need of post-trial access, with Dirceu Greco was part of this revision. Amidst ongoing dispute, a new committee was formed in 2007 with lead an inclusive revision process involving National Medical Association and other stakeholders. Although there was some resistance, especially about the use of placebo. The draft proposed, pasted, and the revised version was adopted in Seoul, South Korea in 2008. A significant advancement for 2008 revision was the mandatory registration of all clinical trial in a public database prior to the patient recruitment. But the big pharma expressed concern about the impact of clinical trial registered on patents. However, the issue of post-trial access and placebo remained controversial. While the US FDA abolished adherence to the Declaration of Helsinki for research conducted outside the United States, the Brazil National Research Ethics Commission began to refer to the 2000 version of the law, aiming for stronger guidelines regarding placebo use and post-trial access. This led to the formation of the work group on placebo in clinical trials. And now, the Golden Jubilee Review. Finally, the seventh revision of the Declaration of Helsinki was approved on its 50th anniversary at the World Medical Association General Assembly in Fortaleza, Brazil, in October 2013. Institutional from the global north generally preferred flexible options for post-trial access and placebo, while those from the global south request guarantee of a drug availability after the trial. Among some of changes, a new principle reflecting the matter of compensation for participants who suffered harm for participation in biomedical investigation was assured. The question obtaining the biobank consent was introduced, and the paragraph on post-trial access was completely modified. But I would like to highlight the 2013 edition of the Declaration of Helsinki removed the distinction between therapeutic and non-therapeutic research, and it marked a decrease in protection for these patient participants, leading to development of two separate medical ethics, one for medical research, the Declaration of Helsinki, and another for medical care, the Declaration of Geneva, the physician oath. In therapeutic research, participants are patients requiring treatment for existing medical conditions, necessitating additional ethical consideration, including the obligation to provide ancillary care and continue post-trial access to demonstrable effective therapeutic agent. Research that produces scientific advances and provides directed benefits, therapeutic benefits to the participants, nonetheless demands a careful risk-benefit assessment, access to effective intervention where they exist, and adherence to a strict ethical principle to protect vulnerable individuals, both, of course, the test and the control arm study. And now, the diamond anniversary of the Declaration of the Helsinki, the ongoing revision process. The World Medical Association will mark the Diamond Jubilee this year by releasing the 8th amendment. Starting in April 2022, they have been revising the declaration to address the current challenge in medical research, highlighted by the recent public health crisis like the COVID-19. The revision are coordinated by an international group created by the World Medical Association and lead, one more time, by the American Medical Association, but with 13 national associations contributing. The World Medical Association has planned at least seven regional meetings to 2022 to this year, and two separate 3 weeks period of public consultation. The increase of regional participation, the diversity of attendees, and opportunities for public input like today are significant improvements. Considering the last draft of the Declaration of Helsinki, the second one, social value, the first one, social value, was highlighted as the goal of medical research. The Declaration of Helsinki, clearly stated that while the primary purpose of medical research is to generate new knowledge, this goal can never overshadow the rights and the interests of individuals, research participants. If compliance of the principle of social value is maintained, that we hope that social value will be maintained, a tendency toward researching Me Too drugs and conducting studies in research poor countries where the resulting treatments often remain inaccessible to the local population will be curtailed. Also, minor change to the 2024 Declaration of Helsinki terminology include replacing subject with participant to honor their right. Considering on the ongoing revision process, I wish to revisit and emphasize the thoughts and appeals related to the Declaration of Helsinki made by a remarkable Latin American personality. From Argentina, His Holiness Pope Francis, during his discourse at the Vatican Declaration of Helsinki Conference on research in poor settings. He called for solidarity and a universal fraternity, while decrying the overemphasis on economic interest above the patient welfare. His message highlights the stark challenge and injustice within clinical trial research in low and middle-income countries, and the global inequalities that disadvantage poor nations. Pope Francis emphasized the need of solutions that balance research opportunities with patient welfare, ensuring equitable distribution of risk and benefits. He condemned the instrumentalization of individual through economic interest and commercial alliance, and noted the importance of preventing healthcare and clinical research inequalities. By advocating for placing the sick person at the center of the ethics in research and calling for the protection of vulnerable areas of clinical research, Pope Francis set a tone of ethical urgency. He urged concrete solutions to this international injustice, underscoring the need for global justice in healthcare, especially critical in the aftermath of the pandemics. This call to action emphasizes the importance of governance that transcend individual nations through archive universal solidarity, promoting healthcare and promoting ethics in research and equity. However, Otmar Kloiber, who has been the World Medical Association Secretary General since February in 2005, criticized attempts to leverage medical research for justice and solidarity in healthcare arguing that this could compromise research integrity through bias and errors. We disagree, strongly disagree. My final considerations. The Declaration of Helsinki, with no doubts, remains the main international document on the ethical principle for medical research involving human participants. And for this reason, it is essential to improve the declaration, particularly because it influences and have been, until now, influenced above national and international legislation, especially in low and middle income countries. Even though the updates in 2013 and 2024 incorporate more collaborative and encompassing approach showing dedication to a range of viewpoints, the Declaration of Helsinki is continuously evolving, yet it remains influenced by the intricate power relationship. The World Medical Association faces the challenge of harmonizing diverse and often conflicting perspectives while contained with pressure from influential lobbying groups that don't always adhere to the highest ethical standards. And some lesson we can be learned from this short history of the Declaration of Helsinki that I show. First, historical lack of consensus among global associations regarding the Declaration of Helsinki is a long-standing issue. Second, the goal of revision process has been to achieve a minimal ethical consensus, a lowest common denominator, rather than a higher ethical standard. Historically, third, there has been limited participation from the Global South countries, a trend that continues when discussions are conducted solely only in English rather than other predominant language, if in French or Spanish, that also are official language from the World Medical Association. Another question, the American Medical Association has historically influenced the Declaration of Helsinki, often accommodating its interest in research ethics and generally lowering ethical standards. It's essential for the World Medical Association to include doctors to discuss the revision without conflict of interest with pharmaceutical companies in the revision process and more female participants. Challenges in expanding participation are linked to ongoing challenges, including expanding participation of the Global South, including listen to them in their own language, and also including research participants, include the patient directly to the revision process. It's important to advocate for maintaining in the Declaration of Helsinki the social value criteria in medical research and to condemn the exploitation of the body of the poor, especially in the Global South countries. Frequently, these communities contribute to pharmaceutical research but lack the access to resulting medical treatment. Finally, the differentiation between therapeutic and non-therapeutic research ethics is essential for ensuring that participant rights, safety, and well-being are adequately and fairly protected. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your comprehensive, great historical analysis on the Declaration of Helsinki, and your argument from the Global South perspective is extremely important. Thank you very much. So is there any question or opinion? Okay, Professor Greco, please.
Yes, thank you, Fernando. That was a very comprehensive discussion of the history. As you mentioned, I participated in many of these situations. And most of the times we were the minority, especially during the discussion of the 2000 version, that by some chance we won. It's nice to remind people that the Declaration of Helsinki, again, belongs to the World Medical Association. And in decision in the General Assembly, the countries that have more doctors have more votes. So, of course, in the voting, USA has the most votes, not only to influence, as you mentioned, before getting to the General Assembly, but to do things after the Assembly. And I have a very good point at that time. When we won the approval of the 2000, that was completely different from the others. We are very happy outside of few people, including Brazilian delegates. And someone came and said, this is not going to be for a long time because pharma industry is going to change it all. So it was 2 years later, and you mentioned that very well. The first note of clarification came. I was there. I was invited. 9 people, 6 from the pharma industry, 2 of us that were independent, 1 from New York and myself, and again in 2004. And you mentioned something that I think has to be stressed. In 2008, the Brazilian National Health Council decided to do one resolution. It's numbered 408, when we decided that we're going to stick to what was written in the 2000 declaration, and now it's part of the CONEP guidelines that I'm sure that Lai is going to talk about it. But thank you. It was a very interesting, and I would like to ask you to send me, as you have it written, please, when you can share it to me, I'll be very happy to read. Again, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So that there are some American participants, and this is a very excellent webinar. That we are always minority, but at this moment, the American participants are a minority, so they may express their opinions. But it will be better to hear after the presentation from the CONEP. That is very very so. Some very characteristics in Brazilian situation to protect the participant of the research. This kind of system we don't have in Japan, but many of the Japanese ethicists are very much interested in such kind of review system. So, and there will be some opinions from the American participants. If there is some opinions, please raise your hand after the presentation of the CONEP experience. So thank you, Fernando, for your excellent presentation. So for Dr. Boniha, I will share your slide. And please unmute, sorry.
I just say that I shared my presentation in the chat.
It's okay. So please say your comment and next slide, please, and I will go to the next slide. So I'm sorry. I have to make it slideshow. So please start your talk.
Yes. Thank you for your kind, Chieko. I really couldn't fix the configuration of my notebook to share. Then I thank you very much. And I will let you know to go through the slides. Can I?
Okay. So please talk. And the next slide, it's okay?
No, let's go. No, the first one, please. Can you? Yes.
Yeah.
Return to the first, please. To the title.
A title, okay.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all. I would like to begin by saying that I'm very happy to participate in this event. and contribute to the discussion of this group. I apologize for my difficulty with English and reiterate my commitment to improve it for the future meeting opportunities. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to thank and congratulate the organizers of this meeting for the importance of the topic and the need to discuss the current proposal for change in bioethics and specifically in research ethics due to the many interests involved and the risks, especially for the most vulnerable populations, such as in Brazil. And Fernando presents about this before. I am Laís Alves de Souza Bonilha, current coordinator of the National Research Ethics Commission, CONEP, and member of the National Health Council, CNS, in Brazil. Can you change? Yes, thank you. I will start my presentation.
Sorry, I cannot see the slides. I don't think they are being presented. I cannot see from my computer.
Sorry,
Is everyone seeing or just?
I think that so how about?
I am seeing my slide. Don't you?
No, so I'll follow with my slides here. That's all right. Okay. If you are seeing, that's okay.
Yes, I'm seeing. Thank you, Dirceu. Everyone is seeing.
Yes. I hope that everyone can see. It's okay, everyone?
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I have no conflict of interest in this presentation. I am a physiotherapist and a professor at a public university in the state of Mato Grosso do Sul, in the central region of the country, in the area of public health. As I said before, I am the coordinator of CONEP and the counselor of the National Health Council. I also present here that I am a potential research participant to remind us that we all are, and that it is necessary to defend our rights, including so that research can be developed, since there is no adequate participation in research in situations of insecurity. Can you pass the next slide? And I also added that I'm a Brazilian citizen, which is important to highlight considering that Brazil is one of the countries with the greatest inequality in the world, and there is a drive to increase research in the country. Like Fernando said before my presentation, with the largely vulnerable population, which increases my commitment to my people in this role. The National Health Council was created together with the Brazilian Unified Health System and is guaranteed by the Brazilian Constitution. The CNS advisors have 19 specific committees that provide technical support for deliberation, and among them in the National Research Ethics Commission. CONEP is composed of CNS members and members nominated by the ethics committees who participate in a selection process to form CONEP, include professionals from different areas of knowledge and representatives of research participants. Today, it is mandatory that before be at least 2 representatives of research participants in each SEP. But the new law, which I will talk about soon, reduced the number to 1. And this is just one example of the losses we have suffered with the new law in Brazil. The CNS created the National Research Ethics Commission, CONEP, by two resolutions, which established regional research ethics committees, our SEPs. This SEP CONEP system is responsible for the ethical supervision for all research projects involving human subjects in Brazil. This number 7 is our CONEP, our commission, between 19 of CNS commission. Can you pass the slide for me, please, Chieko? The CNS composition is composed by 48 full members and their second and third substitutes, who are representatives of national bodies of health, professionals, health sector scientific community, national entities of health service providers, national entities with activities in the area of health, federal government representatives, entities and social movements using the Unified Health System, SUS. And can you... Yes. In order to maintain the balance of interests of the entities involved, the composition of the CNS is made up of 50% of users of the Unified Health System, SUS, 25% of workers, and 25% of service providers and managers. Can you do the enter, please? Yes, again, please. This is a photograph of a monthly CNS meeting, and all of 48 members. And this session occurs monthly, and in this place, they can deliberate about things and about things of CONEP too, if necessary. Can you pass the next? Yes. This CONEP system is made up of CONEP and many ethics committees distributed through the country. CONEP represents the center of the system, being a collegiate body, normative, deliberate, regulatory, advisory, educational, and formulator of guidelines for ethics in research with human beings. Please, the next. Its main functions are analyzes the ethical aspects of research with human beings, its adequacy and regulatory updating, monitoring of compliance. Please, the next one. CONEP analyze projects in specific areas, such as those that present greater individual risk or specific communities of interest to the Brazilian people, and the SUS, or those that receive foreign resources. And this committee is managed by the National Health Council and the Secretariat of Science and Technology Innovation and Health Complex, SECTICS, of the Ministry of Health. Another function is to approve the registration and monitor the operation of 898 research ethic committees. Can you pass? Yes, yes, already said. Please. Okay, thank you. This is the composition of CONEP. I am the coordinator, maker here in blue, and I share the coordinator with 3 assistant coordinators, one of whom is from CNAS, another representing the ethics committees, and another representing the Secretariat of Science and Health Technology. We have 30 full members and 5 alternate members, in addition to 17 ad hoc members and 2 secretaries. Please. Yes, thank you. This is the representation of CEP CONEP system, consisting of CONEP and 878 ethics committees spread through the country. And note the majority of research and consequently of the CEPs are concentrated in the Southeast region with 3,099 CEPs in the Southwest region. Among the CEP, we have 8 accredited CEPs which share the function with CONEP when analyzing and issuing opinions on projects considered to be of greater risk. This number of accredited, I'm sorry. Yes. This number of accredited CEPs will increase significantly now after the publication of a new law, which will require a large number because CONEP will no longer analyze the projects, basing this entire function onto a number of CEPs that are formed to analyze higher risk projects. Others will be needed outside this Southeast region so that they are closer to the participants in the highest risk research. On the right, we can see the number of people involved in the work of the system. It's important to point out the number of representatives of research participants because it is in our interest that they participate actively and increasingly. There are 90, I don't know why, but it was in English. I feel sorry. 1953 are representation by participants in research. Can you change the slide, please, Chieko? Oh, yes, this is the right slide. I feel sorry. Users, representatives. Can you change again, please? Yes. This was the national meeting of ethics committees that took place in July last month, with more than 700 people present and around 5,000 registered to participate online. This was the first meeting that took place after the COVID-19 pandemic, and the government financed 200 research participants to attend the meeting in person, demonstrating the greater interest of popular participation in the system. And it was an excellent event. A lot of people, great discussions. Very good. Can you change? Yes. Here I have brought you some numbers from this large networked system. The Brazil platform has been the tool used since 2012 for communication between institutions, research, SEPs, and CONEP. And in addition, it's possible to search for approved research in the system. And it's an old system. We have to change, but this platform is going to be updated, but is very security for sharing information. That's why we have we need change to do the best way to sharing information in this platform. Can you change the slide, please? And then the current role of CONEP. This is our mostly way to worry just now. And today, CONEP's role is to check documents, analyze protocols, identify not only risks, but also the social value of the research's ability to conduct the research, management, ongoing training and monitoring of SEPs, investigation of complaints, and the updating of standards. All these actions together provide greater protection for the research participants. Some current characteristics that are available are multi-professional composition and various areas of knowledge. Restricted use of placebo is strictly when there is no effective and safe treatment. And this is very important to our discussion. And post-stud assess or post-trial assess for an indefinite period under the responsibility of the sponsor. And we have limits for sending biological material abroad, but it's in changing. Can you pass my slide, please, Chieko? And now we have modifications. We have modification included in the new research ethical laws approved in May 28, 2024. And we have big changes. And we have a new law on conducting research with human beings in Brazil. And according to the law, the scope of CONEP's action is reduced, and CONEP will no longer be authorized to analyze higher risk research projects, which will be analyzed exclusively by accredited SEPs, which weakens the system for all. In this future situation, SEPs registered by CONEP will analyze medium and low risk projects, while SEPs formed to analyze higher risk projects will assume the demand, with CONEP acting as the appeals body. In addition, all other risks that the new law brought are CONEP to be established outside of social control, and it's so bad with increased risks of the conflict of interests. The second point is limitation on the right to post-study or post-trial access to treatment, to medication. And the third point is we are going to be more flexible standards for send biological material outside the country. In Brazil, the use of placebo is not well accepted. During the discussion on the law, there was a proposal to expand the use of placebo to entire population and restrict its use only in the most vulnerable groups. But politicians need to remove this proposal from the law and maintain the use of placebo exclusively in conditions in which there is no recognized and available treatment or medicine. And we are awaiting the publication of the presidential decree that will contain more details about the law. And we hope that this document can at least reduce the harm that has been caused to research participants in Brazil. I will be available to answer any question later. And I would like to ask Dirceu, who was known and followed the system for many years, if he would like to reinforce anything to my presentation. Thank you very much. Can you? Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. And I back to Dirceu or Chieko.
Yes, if I may, thank you very much. It was a very good presentation. And what I want to stress is a kind of feeling of déjà vu. Because what happened in Brazil in the last 2 years was exactly what happened with the Declaration of Helsinki after 2000. There was a strong pressure, of course, coming from the pharma industry that was very happy with the changes. That changed everything. Can you imagine we have almost 900 research ethics committees throughout Brazil? It was established in 1996. It's a very well-established system linked to the National Health Council, that, as Laís showed very well, is composed of so many people for different extractions that conflict of interest is very difficult to happen there. When this new law changed that to the government, it's going to be one of the secretaries of the government that changes every 3 years, or every 3-4 months. A lot of interest, conflict of interest is going to start there. And this change, if you could please put the one before last slide where the modifications are included, if that's possible, Chieko. I want to just to show you this again, the one before this one. Yes, now I can see it. I was not seeing it, but now I can see it. You see the role of CONEP that was included in the 3 aspects of this photograph is going to be reduced. And what's going to happen is that maybe pharma industry can choose what research ethics committee is going to send his projects. So the pressure locally is going to be so hard. That's to be very hard to keep the way it is. And the other thing that Laís mentioned, I'm just repeating, but I think it's nice to be redundant, is that the lowering of the participation of research participants. It was very small, only 2, but now it's only 1. And it's very interesting because one of the questions that was made by our friend that's now in Singapore was that how do we do in relation to post-access trial? And there's a norm in our research ethics committee that says, I'm going to read it because it's so important. The research project must guarantee to all participants at the end of the study for a limited time free access to the best prophylactic diagnostic and therapeutic methods that have proven their efficacy. And there is another part. The access will also be guaranteed in the interval between the end of individual participation and the end of the study, in which case this guarantee could be granted by means of an extension study according to a duly justified analysis from the doctor assisting the research participants. So luckily, this part was not taken out, but they decided that now the access is going to be at the most for 5 years, or if the drug or medication is incorporated at our national health system. So it's going to be pressured to incorporate and make it more expensive for the SUS that Lais mentioned very well. SUS is a system that includes 210 million Brazilian people have access to it. So it's a very bad situation. Lais is fighting now as a coordinator for the last 2 years, trying to change that. I participate with her. We discussed it with many politicians. We thought they were convinced, but at the time of voting, that was what happened. So we are trying now to reduce the damage in the next month or so. And of course, we are going to publish that and we are going to know about that. Thanks for inviting me to participate with you, Lais, and I get back to Chieko to conclude. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So thank you very much to inform the very serious situation of the CONEP system. I think that the CONEP system is great because most of the audience don't know well about the system. That is only one committee or organization to review each protocol. Is it right understanding? No, not only policy making or accreditation or something like that. The CONEP will analyze each protocol and say some kind of opinion. For example, the placebo or post-trial access. Professor Greco previously explained about such a kind of system that you can argue to the sponsor company that this protocol is not good. And then company suddenly changed the protocol according to the advice from the CONEP. Is it right?
Yeah, if I may answer it, but Lais can complement. Yes, that's the way it was. And including when we decided to have a resolution with these two aspects, placebo and access, there were many people saying that we were going to lower the number of research in Brazil because the pharma companies would not like to be there. It did not happen. They have specific projects for Brazil, including the placebo use and the access post-study, and now they're very happy because luckily they could not change the placebo, but access, post-trial access, and taking out the social control is their dream. So we are facing a very difficult situation. But answering directly to our question, all the projects that had high risk were first evaluated locally, and then it was sent to CONEP to have the dual evaluation. That's ended. Yes, Lais, did I explain it rightly?
Yes. Thank you, Dirceu.
Okay.
So there are other Brazilian colleagues coming. The next day's lecturer. So can I pronounce it right? Diego, can you speak how is the situation in Brazil? It's possible not attend now. Thank you for your coming.
Yeah. Hi. Good morning, good evening, good night for all. I think Lais told clearly what is the situation in Brazil. Dirceu commented well as. So This new law we have here reduce the protection of research participants, and it's not a good situation. But CONEP, represented by Lais, is fighting to reduce the damage. So we are trying to put the research ethics and the human rights in place to maintain the protection of research participants.
So please, Professor Greco, please.
Sorry to intervene again, but I completely agree with Diego. But I forgot to say something that I mentioned when the research participant was talking. I'm going to make a call, and I mentioned that to Lais yesterday, and she mentioned to me, not I mentioned to her, is that we have to make maybe an association like they have in Japan to get all there is an association in Brazil that does that, but I think we have to help them. And helping is a good term. We're not going to empower them. We're going to help them to emancipate and be the reason for things happening. Like Diego said, the reducing of damage, it's going to be our role. Because we didn't mention that, but before this law, we didn't have a law on research ethics. It was a directive that worked very well for 20-some years. And now it's completely closed in a law that's very difficult to change. We may still keep trying to make amendments, but it took 5 years to be disapproved. So the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, we have groups discussing that. I participate with Diego, of course, headed by Elda Businger, with the participation of Fernando. We have to help and discuss that. How can we be together with the participants? As Lais said very well, we're all prospective research participants. And at least, even better than that, we're the ones that win with the research ethics participants. So we have to be together. We have to share our part. That's my call. This is going to be available to everyone. We can discuss that soon, I hope. Thank you.
So I would like to bring the question from Takeo that there are 3 declarations from Latin American countries. That two were in 2008, and the last one is 2013. The reason why I invited Fernando is that some book edited by Dr. Nuria Omedas. In her chapter, there is a description that in 2008, in the General Assembly of WMA, Brazilian National Association, Medical Association expressed strong disappointment of the 2008 version of the Declaration of Helsinki. That is recorded in the history of Declaration of Helsinki. That is very important. And there were declarations from the Latin American countries to reject the Declaration of Helsinki due to this placebo clause, and post-trial access were weakened. So such kind of strong objection recorded in the history is very important. So how is the situation of these Latin American organizations' agreement at this moment? So please, Professor Greco.
No, Fernando can expand on that, because at that time, the Pachuca Declaration, I think was 2008, was exactly at the time that the Declaration of Helsinki was going to be approved. And CONEP and the CNS that Lais mentioned, we decided to change our stance related to placebo and post-trial access before the approval of the 2008. It was a Brazilian decision. Independently what was going to happen in 2008, we knew that was going to be very bad. because Fernando mentioned, but I'm going to stress that, Fernando, is that in 2008, the 2 notes of clarification were added. They haven't changed it, just put it in the declaration. And by chance, I was in the 2000, I was in 2008, I was in the 2002, the first note of clarification. And this was very bad, because at the moment of voting of 2008, we lost completely. In the first one in 2000, we won in the vote. 2008 was so much pressure that I think about maybe 2015 only, National Medical Association voted for keeping what the 2000 said. And I think it's the last thing, just reminding everyone that Declaration of Helsinki is not a law. We don't have to follow it. But I think what David mentioned, that I agree very much, is that why are we still discussing that? Every time I look at the mirror, I said, I'm discussing that for 35 years, 25 years, I don't know how much. The reason is that the Declaration of Helsinki has an impact throughout the world. But we have to remember that exactly in 2005, and we published that, Peter Lerner and myself, we published that when the FDA decided to take out the Declaration of Helsinki from their requirements. And I remind Fernando that was not the new one, because the one that they had there was in 1975. They didn't want to do anything with the Declaration of Helsinki because they were afraid that the new one could, by chance, be more strict than the 2004 decision. And we published that. Science Magazine published something too. Didn't make any difference. They published in 2008 saying that for research projects coming from outside the United States of America, they have to follow the GPC. That's not an ethical document. So that's the situation we are in. We have to be together. I hope that we all that are here, most of us, agree. And if you want to read what Chieko and myself wrote, is in the book that she told you. There are 2 chapters, one in placebo, one in post-trial access, ethical innovation for global health. There's a summary there. I think it's a very comprehensive. I'm not going to speak anymore, Chieko, so back to you.
So how is there, Fernando, do you have any opinion on this kind of historical analysis and on Brazilian situation?
I think it's always we need to see the politics. For example, at the time in 2008, the National Council of Medicine, they were more progressive, and now they are denialist. So at that time, the National Council of Medicine, they was against the Declaration of Helsinki. But not the Brazilian Medical Association, because they changed the people. When Dirceu Greco was the representing, we was so happy because he fight for the best interest of the participant. But after they change, for example, the president of Brazilian Medical Association in the revision process in 2013 is now the vice president of the CONFEMEL. So before, the CONFEMEL was against Declaration de Helsinki, because not against the placebo and also the post-trial access flexibilities. But now maybe they change, because it's always regarding the politics and this kind of extreme right person. When are the politics, the monies talk. So I think that's the problem. Also, our institution always change by person that they have different point of view. So if in 2000, 2002, 2004, the Brazilian Medical Association was more progressive, after that they changed their mind. And that's the problem. That's the problem, because now you remember the World Medical Association made in 2013 lots of meetings in Brazil. And that's the reason that our National Health Research Council was strong in not referring the DAW, because they want a more strong placebo and post-trial access principles. So I think we not always look to also the politics and the social environment.
I said
Okay.
I said I was not going to say anything, but that's my last time. Fernando, you remember that too, because in 2013, when I was in Fortaleza, I was invited by the World Medical Association to participate, and I asked them, "Are you inviting CONEP?" "No, we're not inviting CONEP." So I declined. I'm not going to be there, because I don't think that was the way. They were in the country where they had the largest research ethics commission, and they decided not to invite it. So that was exactly what Fernando mentioned. It's interesting because in 2008, even with president of the Brazilian Medical Association being from the right, the pressure on him was so big that I was invited with them to be in 2008. So in the end, they agreed with the decision that we should be against what is going to be changed. But now we're lost. We have to write that. We have written about that, but it's a situation that for countries like Brazil, like Argentina, and some of the countries in South America, we're facing chaos. Excuse me. We have a very good president now, but the country itself is facing a pressure from the right that we never had before. Now, I promise I'm not going to say anything more before the end of this meeting. Thank you, Shirko.
No, please say anything you like. So I would like to ask you just one more question to Fernando. You said about the highest standard or minimum requirement. That is exactly the question I included in my slide presentation for the Washington, D.C. meeting. So at this moment, while the people believe that the Declaration of Helsinki is the highest standard, however, at this moment, coming to be a minimum requirement. So I am saying this because I made a presentation to the National University Hospital to explain how is the second version of the, that may be the first version, but the proposed revision of the Declaration of Helsinki. And the organizer said that she is surprised that there are Japanese guidelines more higher standard than Declaration of Helsinki. At this moment, there is no impact of the Declaration of Helsinki to Japan. Only Declaration of Taipei, that would be the great impact. However, there is no change of the placebo. The post-trial access a little bit stronger. However, there is an excuse that ethics committee can approve if there is no post-trial access. So at this moment, I feel that the Declaration of Helsinki is coming to be the minimum requirement. And the Japanese people believe that DOH is the highest standard. Number one. And she said it was surprising to know that. And I did not expect such kind of a reaction. It was surprising for me also. So how do you think about this kind of point?
I said that the historical lack of consensus between the different association, usually they put not the better, the highest highest ethical standard to accommodate other needs. Since the beginning, if we compare the first draft published in British Medical Journal with the first Helsinki Declaration, we will see that they didn't mention captive group like orphan, like prisoners, like other persons for institutionalized or even students, for example, they didn't mention nothing regarding clinical trials at the time. They put less strong accent for informed consent. So we cannot say that Declaration of Helsinki is the highest level, is because it's an international society that needs to accommodate different point of view. So it's a lowest common denominator rather than a highest ethical standard. We can say that in Brazil, we have in the paper, highest level, of course. Of course, the Declaration of Helsinki have a strong importance. I know that, for example, in 1975, when they start to put the necessity of ethics committee review, or in the last revision, or for put in a public database before the first recruitment to turn this public. It's an improvement that Declaration of Helsinki bring to us, like post-trial access. Even if our discourse have some disagreement on post-trial access was something that was first thinking about the placebo, and it starts in the Declaration of Helsinki a new principle. But we cannot say that is a highest ethical standard because the process has been to achieve a minimal ethical consensus. And if, for example, the history shows from American Medical Association, usually they try to, not always for sure, but usually they try to accommodate their legislation that are more liberal, that are less protective. Even now, I have with Nuria drug bulletins. In the next bulletin, we will show also that now the USA FDA also put some lawyer requirement for informed consent. So the Declaration of Helsinki remains an important international guidelines, but we can say that they have the highest ethical standard. No, they have the lowest common denominator, because otherwise, if we saw in the history with 2015, 1975 and 2000 version of Declaration of Helsinki both increase the ethical standard and so also decrease the adoption by these power nations like United States or even Northern Council of Bioethics and another this rich group, the powerful group that want to expand the clinical trials to the more poorest population because it's cheaper. So that's the reason that we need to fight for highest ethical standard. And that's the reason that I'm so happy that you, Tieko, that Dirceu Greco, that we are discussing how to put more values, social value, for example. It's a pity if the social value disappears on the next Declaration of Helsinki, as we saw in the second round of public consultation. So that's the reason that I think, and I show I had the opportunity, and I have a copy of the archives, of historical archives. So everything that I said was based on primary source, and I can say that it's a difficult for the World Medical Association harmonize diverse and usually conflicting perspective. So it's the minimal common denominator in matter of medical research.
So thank you very much. I agree with you that I think that the 2000 version would be the highest standard, and there are many impacts to Japan also. But at this moment, I'm sorry to say that there is no impact except the Declaration of Taipei. So we wish to fight more, but that keep the credibility and the position of the Declaration of Helsinki. It is very important, and I am happy to say that some of the IFAP members share with us this kind of argument. This is not official position of IFAP, but some members of the IFAP who are working with global pharma very much feel sympathy with us. And global pharma's policy is more ethical, and sometimes more ethical than Declaration of Helsinki. They struggle for post-trial access. They provide the protocol, clinical equipoise between the comparative arms. In Japan, for example, PMDA, regulatory authority, if there is such kind of high risk discrepancy, this kind of protocol will not be approved. But sometimes the companies, the people, physician working with the company says sometimes PMDA, the regulatory authority, push the high risk study. So this is a very so difficult situation for pharmaceutical physicians. They express that this kind of protocol will not be accepted by the ethics committee. So that is a problem for us. And we hope that the Declaration of Helsinki show highest standard. That is a last opportunity to bring our voices to the WMA. So, okay, is there any comments from participants? That would be the final moment for you to express your opinion just before the closing remarks from the Professor Greco. And is there any opinion or a question? If there is nothing, so I would like to pass the microphone to Professor Greco for closing remarks. It is just a closing time, so please say your most important message to the world.
You're very kind. I just want to thank everyone. I thank again the organizers, and being part of that is very good for Brazil. And the presence of the Brazilian Society of Bioethics, it's nice to remember that during the pandemic and during the right-wing government that we had, the Brazilian Society had a very strong instance in protecting human rights. So it's very good to be here with you. I made some summary of what was shown from the presenters. I don't have to say anything about Fernando and Laís because I already said they were fantastic, the presentation. But I really liked, I think the highlight was the presentation, sorry to say that, by the research participants. I think that's a very good point. And of course, I like very much the two presentations from Takeo and also from the Kotoni Matsuyama. It's very interesting to have the IFAPP with us, because that's not the usual way that the research doctors in Brazil behave. It's very nice to have an example. And we discussed that before, Shiv. Very good that they were here presenting with such intensity in the same way that we have been doing. So with that, I think we should finish now. saying again how honored I'm here representing the Brazilian society. Unfortunately, Elda could not come. She sent her apologies. She'll be here on the 26th. And I'm very glad to have so many people together in these 3 hours, different times in the world. And I think that's our role. We have to be together. We have to be fighting together, adding more participants everywhere that we go. I always remember what happened with the AIDS epidemic, that I participated in all of the international meetings. In each and every roundtable, there's at least 1 or 2 people living with HIV. It's the same as what we're talking about here. So it's our role to be modest enough to say that we don't know many things. We have to be together to not, and I like the way that Fernando said about the minimum common denominator of ethics. We have to change that to the maximum, not only achievable, but the maximum denominator that could be used for countries. Remember that each country can do their guidelines much more strict than the Declaration of Helsinki. This we have to keep in mind. It's not a law. It's just a tabula rasa, like they say in Latin. We have to just put things on the table. Thank you, Chieko. I give back to you because the last goodbye has to be from Japan. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So we have to close this session, and we hope everyone to attend the second day, that is August 26th. So we continue the discussion. So thank you very much for your participation. Goodbye. See you again.